This thing that I have found is what I would call my gracious space. So here we are once again. Tony Rodriguez is sitting across from me, back for round 3.
This might take you a hit.
I don't know. We might just start to talk about getting our own little thing going here.
I agree. Yeah, just a little segment between us, huh?
Well, it's pretty obvious, I think, from prior conversations with you, how much you mean to me, how much you mean to my fitness life. And, I see you 3 days a week. You become a part of my family, my circle even. And we're going to go beyond the fitness, though. It's clear that you know what you're doing. You can look at any of his social medias, any of his content, websites, and know this guy is the real deal, right? But what I love about my mornings with you, Tony, is that we also have a conversation. And a lot of times that leads us down some uncomfortable conversations, actually. And I enjoy that. I think it pushes me further as a person, grows me mentally. So I really value that time with you. And appreciate you being here this morning. So we're going to talk a bit about just being real with each other. And
appreciate the praises, Jack, honestly.
Yeah, he can write me a check later. And you've got family, we all do, relationships with others, and they come and go. Some stick, that's all good. And then with each other. So there's a wide variety of that. But can we all be real with each other? What does that mean to you? What does being real with your relationships mean to you?
Well, I love that start to the question right there, Jack.
Let's just get down to it.
Yeah.
We're limited time here. We got to get to the chase.
So for myself, when you ask me what real looks like in a relationship, whatever type of relationship that you're really focusing on, whether that be your intimate relationship, your friendships, or the family, right? It's a matter of how vulnerable can you get in those relationships, right? How safe do you feel in that space? I think that's what really determines how real or potentially fake that relationship really is, right? I think the better you can go ahead and express yourself in your relationships, the more of an environment of growth that you're creating amongst each other as well, right?
It's sort of that old cliche, you can't really love others till you love yourself kind of thing, right?
Correct.
Well, I think you just touched on a little something. Sometimes people may feel so insecure or a little bit uncomfortable in a deep conversation about how they really feel that they just kind of put that off. They create excuses. They go ghost on you, however they deal with it. Not everyone's equipped to sort of do that, Yeah. And, I feel like we all should. Easier said than done. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I think it's, sorry to cut you off, Jack, but I think you're right. I think it is important to be able to do that, to have people to do that with as well, to be vulnerable, to express yourself, to feel safe. But I think it's also important to understand whether or not the person that you're about to initiate that type of relationship with, or put yourself in a vulnerable state with, do they have the capacity to reciprocate that with you as well, right? Yeah. I think that's equally as important. Yeah. And I think that's the most unfortunate part, is that a lot of people don't have those types of people in their lives that can reciprocate that for them. Which is why, for example, us with training, that's a part of my training that I absolutely love to do. Yeah. I think that's one of the values that not a lot of people really see initially when they sign up with me also.
Well, that's sort of hard to advertise, to be honest.
That is very hard to advertise. That's a cherry on top, I like to call it, right? Yeah. But most importantly, if we could go ahead and make sure that your mental is on point and the way that you feel outside of training, right? If that's on point, then that coexists with just great physical health also, right?
Yeah. So mentally, how they feel, they go into their other goals not so successul.
Correct. And then the majority of the time, whether they feel good or not, has a lot to do with the relationships that they've established in their life also, right? A lot of the problems that you could probably put your finger on, if you think back, has a lot to do with relationships or communication, right? Or lack of communication with certain instances or situations in your life, right?
Yeah. Oh, I was raised in a home where we didn't really use the word love very often. Very rarely did we actually hug, you know? I mean, there were times, and I loved my family and we all loved each other, but we just didn't know how to express that to each other very, very easily. Yeah. And that's kind of how I grew up. I think my parents probably grew up the same way. They just didn't, that wasn't in their part of their life or their routine. Yeah. In a lot of those cases.
See, and it's interesting because in your case, well, I guess I should say in my case, it's a little bit of the opposite. I feel like my parents knew how to express well, not necessarily express love. They express love in their way of expressing love, right? Sure. Whichever way they knew how to express love. Yeah. And they would constantly remind me how much they love me. But I think that the way that they would express their love to me sometimes wasn't necessarily what I needed and what I needed to go ahead and grow as an individual, right? Yeah. Or needed in the form of love, right? Yeah. So I think it's very important to understand what type of love somebody needs as well, right? Yeah. How you could go ahead and express that to them. How do they express love and how they would like to be expressed love, right?
Can you identify that for us? What was that need or that?
So I think for myself, it's more so the action behind it, right? I think especially when if we're talking about like the subject on parents, parents don't have a rule book of how to raise a kid, right? Most of the majority of the time they're winging it and they're learning as they go, right? And I think us as their children, it's a very tough concept for us to grasp, especially at that age, at least, right? Yeah. When in their eyes, they're doing the best that they can and trying to look out for your best interest, whether or not that's the correct thing to do, right? Whatever approach that they're taking. Yeah. But it's not from malicious intent that they're going ahead and doing certain things. On the contrary, they want your best interest. They have your best interest at heart, right? Yeah. But sometimes it's not necessarily what is best for you. Yeah. But I also feel like it's not until you get to a certain level of maturity in your life that you learn how to determine what is best for me. And I think that's a very big pivotal point in people's lives as well. Once they understand, exactly what I need as an individual to grow and what is best for myself, and how that there's a discrepancy between that and what my parents want also. And that's very tough because now you have to try to really establish that understanding with your parents or communicate that to your parents.
It's almost like a breakthrough.
It's almost like a breakthrough because for your parents, you're going to always be their baby boy, their baby girl, right? Yeah. So with that mentality, it's also this sense of needing to show to provide security, and sometimes it's coddling you, right? Yeah. But that's what's preventing you from growing sometimes.
I see it. I don't want to say constantly or getting myself in trouble here, but you've got these helicopter parents, right? That just want to just tell their kid, do that, that's on page 23, or you need to do this.
Control everything in life.
Yeah, and that kid can't really grow and develop and become himself or herself at the same time. Yeah. So do you think there's sort of stages through life then? I mean, where you do, that maturity comes with other relationships, breakups, happiness, joy, the whole thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think I think through that experience, one, it's important to actually experience that in your life, right? Yeah. One way or another, you're going to experience these things, these different chapters of life. But when you are experiencing them, are you learning from them, or are you just destined to cycle through that every single time and find yourself in a situation, right?
Sit and stew in that moment.
Yes.
And not think about how to get out of this, or I've been myself times where, like, say some not such a great event has occurred, and you hear people, this will pass, and they want to comfort you, and there's no real thing to say to somebody like that. Yeah. So you have to look at yourself and pull yourself out of that. What they're saying is not that untrue. It's up to you how long it's going to take to get you out of it. You can sit there and stew in some difficulty for days or months, or maybe not even get out of it. But if you don't have that capability on how to do that, that's the trick right there.
Yes. Yeah. And once again, I feel like that only comes with experience, right? Over time. Yeah. One of the situations that I deal with a lot of also right now with not a lot, but I've dealt with this a few times with particular clients, and now it's even more prevalent. It's depression, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good example of how when people trying to go ahead and learn from their mistakes or learn how to go ahead and push forward, but unfortunately end up staying in the past with something, right? So we talk about when we talk about what depression is you continuously thinking about the past, right?
Yeah.
Anxiety is you continuously thinking about the future.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I feel like the only way you can get over the past is to obviously learn from it and learn how to go ahead and adapt and push forward from something, right? But if you're constantly just thinking about the stuff that happened in the past, and in this case, in reference to relationships, then you're destined to go ahead and fall right into that cycle over and over and over again, right?
Well, this is what I love about what you just said and what you do for a living, that fitness can be that outlet.
Yeah.
You know, it can give you a certain drive, goals, and distract you sort of from that other part that's taking away from your day to day. Yeah. And depression. It can help pull you out of that.
Yes.
You know, with that growth and those stages of life, I think we touched base on this the other day. There's a season, a reason, and a lifetime.
Yeah.
People have heard of that. I think Les Brown kind of sort of coined that phrase, but there's truth to that.
For sure.
There very much is a lot of truth to that, I think.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to recognize identify how that person will be. Are you going to be a season, a reason, or a lifetime?
Yes.
And go from there.
Yeah. This is a conversation we actually had earlier this week as well, is I think it's important to categorize your friendships as well, right? I think there's a lot of mixed feelings about that, but I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah.
I think it's perfectly fine to categorize friends in your life, right? And in any relationship, right? You have friends that you know that you could go ahead and sit down and have a very deep and meaningful conversation with. Those are the friends that are, you're really going to look for when you're in a very tough spot in life. Yeah. You have friends that love to go out and have a good time right? And those are important friends in life. Those are my only friends in life. So those are important. Those are just equally as important in your life also, because you need to go ahead and be able to just go out and express yourself and enjoy yourself every once in a while. And then you have acquaintances that are just in passing that you every once in a while come across in your life, or sometimes dip into your life and out of your life, right? Yeah. And when we talk about seasons, sometimes they're very important for a particular season in your life. And then you'll find yourself in that pivoting point of that relationship as well, where maybe there's not too much relatable common ground anymore, right? Yeah. And you realize that you guys are slowly falling apart or just distancing yourselves, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's also important to be aware of that, right? Yeah. I
love that, categorizing your friends. So you have like your friends that you love a good meal with, versus an in-depth conversation as well. Luckily, hopefully we can find somebody who likes several of those things.
Yeah, no, those are gems, Jack. The ones that fall into many different categories, right? And that could dip into a lot of those different categories. Yeah. Luckily, I've had the ability to have really, really good friendships in my life. And I've been blessed to have those friendships for a very long time. Yeah. So I was exposed to that from a very young age. So I think that's the reason why through that experience, I was able to really categorize friendships really quick once I realized these people that I'm meeting in my life and my later in my life, right? Or my late 20s, early 30s now, I could really distinguish, okay, are you somebody that's willing to be vulnerable, willing to be truthful, organic, right? Genuine, all those things, or are you an individual where I feel like I can't really trust too much of what comes out of your mouth, right? Which is perfectly fine. I'm not judging you for it, but I know where to go ahead and categorize you, right?
Well, and I think a lot of times having conversations with people they have a good heart, they're good, solid people, and they got your back, you got their back. But if I guess when I'm trying to kind of go down the path of expectations, if that person doesn't step up, once or twice is fine, but a handful of times and more, you need to cut that cord. That's when it's tough. to sit there. And how do you do that? How do you have a solid conversation? Because that person might need something you can provide to them to continue that path with them.
Correct. And this is my opinion on that, Jack. I think it's very important for people to invest time and energy into those relationships, especially if they've been long-standing friendships also, right? Or even intimate relationships sometimes. So I definitely think that you should invest time and energy into those, especially if you feel like it's starting to slowly fall out. Because sometimes you don't know what's going on in their life, and you need to go ahead and ask them. And if they open up to you and they need you, exactly, those are the times that they need you the most. And those are opportunities for you to really build so much stronger of a bond amongst that relationship as well, right? But I think it's equally important for people to be able to determine when it's time to go ahead and walk away from a relationship, right? Because I think that's another issue that a lot of people have, is that people stay in certain relationships for way longer than necessary. And I think, at least for myself, what I've realized is the minute that it actually starts affecting my mental health, after I know that I have invested the time and energy, and I've hit it from every different angle possible to try to salvage that friendship or relationship. At that point, that's when I know that I need to go ahead and walk away from that, right?
Well, and I think we look at that with significant others, with friends in our group. For me, a couple of years ago, I had to make that decision on my own about a family member. And that was tough. You know, you grow up with somebody, you have certain thoughts, how they are as a person, and then they aren't, you know, and it's like losing a loved one.
100%.
You know? And I think that's even more difficult, because if you sort of stick with that or stay in that, it becomes very toxic. And then that only goes back to affect you and your day to day, and constantly thinking about it and falling asleep, and it's just on your mind. And I believe for me, once I made that decision to sever that in a clean, simple way, then game changer for me. You know, I stopped thinking about it. There are times when it does pop up, you know, a lot actually, but you just got to shift your thinking towards something else. So it's not just with those friends or significant others, but I think within your family as well. I think a great way to determine whether or not a relationship is salvageable, and I think this is, in my personal opinion, probably the biggest foundation that everybody should have in a good, solid relationship, a healthy relationship, is communication. Learning how that individual communicates, and that individual needs to learn how you communicate, right? Having that understanding amongst each other is so important. It takes two for that.
It takes two for that. Yes. So I'm going to be completely honest with you, Jack. I've been in situations in the past where, right off the bat, from me getting to know someone, in the first couple minutes, I'm able to categorize those type of individuals right away, right? What type of friend are you going to go ahead and be, or what type of acquaintance are you going to be, or are you someone that I don't even want to associate myself with at all, right? And a lot of that has to do with what you're communicating to me at that very moment, right?
You present yourself.
How you present yourself, yes. And then once you've actually established a relationship, how well are you at communicating? Are you a communicator, or are you an arguer? Right? The first minute, the first chance that you go ahead and get into a debate, are you going to start raising your voice at me? Are you going to start yelling? Or you start getting defensive about it? And then now we're not even talking about the topic anymore. Now both of us are on the defense, trying to go ahead and prove our point, right?
And that's a hard one too, because I know my emotions get in the way, and I can't articulate always what in a heated conversation. And a personal goal of mine actually now is to withdraw myself or remove myself in a more professional or understanding way, and sort of just let them be them. And listen, but I don't have to participate or take part of that conversation. You know, and that they want to hook you. They want you in there. They want to drag you with them.
Yes.
And so I'm really trying to do that now. It's just to kind of, not that it happens all the time in my life, but there are times, you know, especially in a customer service oriented business, there are times you just have to let them be.
This is interesting because in the time that I've known you, Jack, I've seen so much growth in you mentally with that.
Hopefully,
and that in
hopefully
particular,
my gains.
Yes,
I haven't eaten more.
But I feel like that's a huge thing that I've noticed also is just the way that you're able to go ahead, your reaction to something, right?
Yeah.
Not saying that you were just crazy reactive to begin with, but I see even in the conversations that we have and like the situations and scenarios that you play out for me sometimes, and your reaction to those things, right? Where you could have easily blown up or matched their energy on something, you decided to go ahead and walk away from it or just not participate in it, like you're saying. It's not worth it. It's affecting you way more than it's affecting them.
Yeah.
You just said it yourself. Those people are trying to hook you into being misery loves company, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately they haven't been giving the tools or conversations with other friends or people in their life to elevate their mood or grow in that,
or to learn how to properly communicate, right?
Yeah.
It's funny because for myself, I love my dad to death.
Yeah.
But we've had a few conversations about me and my upbringing and my father and stuff, and how we butt heads a ton when I was growing up. His communication style is very different than mine. But it took me a while to really learn and understand that about him, right? He's a very passionate individual. I'll use those words in particular.
I can see that. I've never even met the man. I can definitely see that.
And so growing up, I always saw it as almost, I don't want to use the word burden, but it was more so, I saw it as a disadvantage growing up with a dad that, in my opinion, I thought was just so hard-headed and it was so difficult to go ahead and get anything through, right?
Yeah.
Once I got a little bit older, I actually saw how much of a benefit that was for me, because that turned me into a very patient individual, Jack.
Yeah. You're extremely patient. Yeah,
that's one thing that I'm very proud of myself of, and I could go ahead and vouch for that for myself, is that I know I'm a very patient individual, but that did not come very easy. It was really learning how to navigate that communication and relationship with my dad, right?
Yeah.
And that's what really taught me how to be very patient and understanding, and sometimes just not participating in certain conversations or communication styles as well, right?
Do you recall that turning point? Well,
I think it wasn't until I actually moved out of my house that happened for me. Yeah. So give or take maybe like 25 or so.
Yeah.
That was the turning point, I feel like, in my life, because that was when I determined that I needed to separate myself from that environment, right? I knew that if I stayed in that environment, the longer I stayed in that environment, I was just not growing from it. And I think I could speak on behalf of a lot of kids or children, right, to parents.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest things that you want to do is you want to make your parents proud.
Yeah.
Right?
That's their number one goal in their life, is to see you succeed.
Yes.
Keep you safe.
100%. And I think going back to what we're talking about is sometimes what might make them proud isn't necessarily what's best for you. Yeah. So once I came to that understanding, it was around that 25-year mark for me.
Yeah.
I understood that me trying to make my dad proud in the ways that he wants to be proud of me in, right?
Yeah.
Isn't what's best for me.
Right.
And he didn't really understand that when I tried to communicate that with him, and it turned into a fallout, and I decided that that's the time that I need to go ahead and separate myself from that.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I separated myself from that relationship and started living on my own that I was able to rekindle that relationship with my father
in a healthy way.
In a healthy way, because now it wasn't like a father-son relationship. It was an actual friendship that we established, right? There was a mutual level of respect at that point. So I think for a lot of people that are living with their parents right now, also, it can be a very tough situation for them, because if you have that conflicting mentality where you want to make your parents proud, or maybe you're trying to communicate to them what you need and what you know is best for you, what you think you know is best for you, and you guys are butting heads already. That's a very tough space to grow in, right? it's tough enough to go ahead and take the leap of faith and go in the direction of whatever your goals might be, right? Let alone having somebody there telling you that you're doing you're taking the wrong route, or constantly reassuring you of your fails and telling you that, hey, you're continuing to fail because you're not listening to what I have to tell you, right?
I know it all.
Yeah, I know it all. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's where these stages we talked about come into play. You entered another stage at that point.
Correct.
And you went from, in your dad's eyes, probably someone I'm having to take care of, I need to feed, I need to nourish, I need to give all my knowledge to. Then you all of a sudden moved out, and then now you're an adult. and he himself probably struggled, I think, with that a little bit, but he realized, wow, he's my Tony's growing up, he's got his own thoughts and ideas, and look, he's not doing too bad either, you know? You mentioned about kids living or, with their parents and stuff. I think, that's such a hard one these days because financially it's expensive out there.
Oh yeah, I feel from 100%.
So
I mean, even myself, I'm put in the situation right now where I don't know if I want to go ahead and purchase here in the U.S. in California in particular. Yeah. But I love to travel in general, so I'm up in the air whether I want to go ahead and make a purchase out here in California or I want to go ahead and do something in Latin America. But actually, now that we're on that topic, that's something that I was actually talking to our cameraman Leo about earlier, is how important it is for you to travel and what that does for you with the relationship you have with yourself as well. I love to travel. You love to travel also, Jack. And I think it's so important for everybody to travel. And the reason why is because you got to get out of this bubble, this circle, because unfortunately, there's pros and cons to it, but you're in a bubble where the majority of times, most of those people think the same way, right? It's different cultures, different values, right? Different morals sometimes. So when you travel elsewhere, you get a feel for different culture, different morals, different values. And you get to learn maybe that's an environment that you actually prefer to be in, or you learn different values or morals and culture about yourself.
A couple of words that come to mind. I mean, traveling can be very humbling. It could make you feel more grateful or blessed. It could be eye-opening. There's many things traveling offers you. When you do that, you just got to pick the right place that you enjoy. But that's very important. I agree with you on that. Where's your next place you're traveling to? I'll veer off the course real quick.
Next one, I just got back from a short trip to Ensenada, but we're doing El Salvador again, and then I might do something in South America again. But we'll see. I have a wedding to go to. One of my cousins is getting married in El Salvador.
Nice.
But every year we typically go. I have one of my grandmothers is still alive. She's the only one alive right now from parents of my parents. So we try to go every year to visit. The reason why I sort of go down that little curve there is I was hoping you mentioned your grandmother because her ethics, how old is she now? My grandmother is 97-ish.
And her days don't change, right? She gets up, she does her chores.
It's wild, 5 a.m. Feeding the chickens. Tend to the animals. I mean, if you haven't guessed it by now, she lives on a farm. So, and anyone out there that has ever been on a farm or has ever tended to a farm understands the struggles there's things to do for sure. So it's so admirable seeing this woman, 97 years old. She's up and walking around and 5 a.m. It's wild.
Crazy. I respect her very much. I think in this day and age, and we've touched base on this on prior episodes too, but technology is at our fingertips. She doesn't probably have that or desire. What a difference mentally too. She's
got a flip phone to call my dad every once in a while.
I love it. But it's the mental part of that. I'm guilty of it. It takes me away during the day and removes me from
being present,
showing some energy toward other things I got to get done. And I think we all should maybe take a break, at least speaking for myself.
Digital detox?
Yeah. Or at least during the day or something like that.
Yeah.
So then what about expectations from your friends? And we all had different. There's always that one person in the crowd who's like going to be late for dinner, or let's do this, and this is big. All of a sudden, turn into $1 million experience, and you're like, oh man,
yeah,
I'm going to hang, but I can't spend $1 million on this thing right now. There's all those. There's always those people in your group, but you love them. You want to be with them.
I think it's important to establish common ground with people, right? Common grounds and determine the type of relationship that you have with people also.
So common ground meaning boundaries, perhaps?
Boundaries as well, understanding boundaries, yes. Yeah. So both common grounds and boundaries. And what I mean by that is common grounds in the sense of if you're the type of individual that loves to go out to restaurants and you're a big foodie, and you don't mind going ahead and spending maybe $150, $200, $300 on a meal or something, right? Then you're probably going to have a great time with somebody else that enjoys the same thing, right? Yeah. Somebody else that likes to go to maybe a $20 dinner or a value dinner and they don't care too much for the culinary experience. Yeah. They're probably not going to have a great time with you if you're taking about the $300
no disrespect
dinners.
To them, but
and no disrespect to them.
You want more bang for your buck. You want to enjoy that experience.
Exactly. So it's different mindsets in that, and you can see how either one of those individuals might be conflicted. If I was to take you to, let's say, Subway, because that's my favorite place, I doubt that you're ever going to want to hang out with me and have lunch again, Jack. No offense to Subway out there and the people that love Subway.
Well, of course, I just recently went to the spaghetti factory, so that kind of comes out. Had a great time.
So that's what I mean by common ground. And by boundaries, I mean it's making sure that you never abuse my kindness, or there's always a level of mutual respect amongst each other, right? Yeah. If I make reservations for us at 7:00 for dinner, and you're texting me at 7:15 that hey, you know what, I'm running late. 7:30 comes around. Hey, you know what? I'm probably not gonna make, or I'm still running a little late. Can you order for me? 7:45 comes around. The food's out. Hey, you know what? I'm so sorry, but I'm gonna have to bail on you. Yeah, that's just a lack of mutual respect on that end, right? Yeah. I don't care which perspective you take on that. That's a lack of mutual respect. Yeah. And that's you overstepping boundaries in that sense. So you have to be very adamant about placing those boundaries, communicating those boundaries to one another, right? So in that situation, in that event, the minute that happens, hey, I'm sitting down with you. I'm going to be honest with you. That's not something that I really appreciated. I'm not cool with that. Yeah. I love you to death, and I appreciate what you do for me whenever it is that is in the relationship that we have for one another, but we need to establish these boundaries as well, right?
And that's that tough conversation that not everyone's comfortable with.
Yes.
Whether they think they're going to be rejected or create some sort of heated argument or what have you, that's a hard conversation. Even though it seems simple, hey, dude, I need you to show up. Yeah, it seems simple, but deep down, it's kind of a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's the problem is that we're people pleasers, Jack. A lot of people are people pleasers, and that, and that goes back into the individual that hasn't spent enough time with themselves to really learn to value and respect themselves. Yeah. You need to do that before you go ahead and establish a healthy relationship outside of that, right? Because I'm worried about how you're going to feel about something when I'm bringing up a situation that I felt bad in. Yeah. That means I'm not respecting myself enough to be able to have that conversation with you, right? And in essence, that comes around full circle, because that means that the threshold for the respect that I can have for you only goes as high as the respect I have for myself, or I know how to give myself. Yeah. Right. And I think that's not a perspective that people really take into consideration when it comes down to relationship building like that. So when the advice I could give for the people that are kind of scared to have those difficult conversations would be, think back, is this something, do you feel like you're giving yourself enough respect and value? Yeah. And if not, then better nip those conversations in the butt sooner than later, right? Yeah.
And once you do, it's not going to seem as overwhelming.
Yes.
You come out stronger.
And once again, the people that you bring that up to, you only have power in in the way that you present whatever situation is amongst you guys, right? But you have absolutely no power in how somebody's going to go ahead and perceive what you say. If somebody is a negative Nancy, for lack of better words, it doesn't matter how well thought out the thing is, they're going to go ahead and think just the absolute worst about the situation, right? And they're going to think you're a terrible person for bringing it up, and they're going to think that that you're a complainer, or you're nagging, or you're too high maintenance, right? But those are the people that you just don't need in your life. So for me, the quicker I get to go ahead and see what type of individual that you are, the quicker I get to learn where I'm categorizing you in my friendships, right?
Well, let's flip that too, because I'm a very firm believer of affirming people. And so just as much as that hard or negative conversation can be, giving people positive energy and sincerity is a part of that. Not just your normal, okay, how was your day? Or, but affirming them and going about it the right way, picking and choosing something that's important to them, listening to them. If someone mentions something a couple of times, you're like, oh, okay, that's really important to them. That little thing that happened to them in the day really made a difference in their day. I see that with my employees, and they come in and they're all happy in the morning. Oh, I just saw a friend from high school, and you got to attach onto that and affirm them in the way that it continues that positive energy, the interaction they've just had. So I think that also could be kind of difficult to do as well, is to recognize that and when to use it and not to use it, and be sincere with it. But
I think I like that approach that you took also, Jack, is attention to details that you're talking about, right? Really being attentive of different details that are important in your friends or intimate relationships life, right? Or family. Aside from really putting in that attention to detail, I think it is important to, I call it being a broken record sometimes, right? And I feel like if you ask any one of my friends, close friends, I feel like I'm the king of that. And I feel like I do that with you as well. I think you know this about me as well, where I will go ahead and say I love you all day, right? But I try to go ahead and be as specific as I can as to why I'm appreciative of you for particular details or things that you might do in this relationship, right? So I think the more detailed you can get about that, the better of an establishment you're going to be able to go ahead and create, right? Foundation that you're going to create with that relationship. And they're going to appreciate that, right? The right person will appreciate that very much so.
They definitely will. And that's one thing I love about you too. You're a great listener. And I know there's been occasions even when you will recognize that in people. And there's one instance where you have a client, and if something's kind of going poorly in their day or whatever, you're like, okay, let's go walk. Let's just walk and talk it out. That probably meant the world to that person. They were still getting some fitness in, some mental clarity, and had somebody they could, just kind of dump on if they wanted to. And that person that they did was you. And luckily you're a good person to do that too, because you have logical, specific comments back that make a lot of sense.
I hope people don't take this seriously and start dumping on me even more after this conversation, Jack.
Everybody will be leaving the gym all
Tony the dump truck is a nickname.
Hey, we can probably brand that.
Oh, shoot, no.
Like Thomas the Train for kids is Tony the dump truck. Let's do it.
Oh, that's funny.
Get you a t-shirt.
The t-shirt with Tony the dump truck.
Navigating through life with friends, family, significant others is not easy. It's not easy at all. And there's times when internally I want to make it not easy for me. If I'm not going to be happy, why should they be happy? And that's not the right way to do.
That's not the right approach. I think the overall goal is as we get older, Jack, and wiser, I shouldn't say older, we get wiser, right? As we get wiser, we learn that the most important thing we have in our lives is our peace. And how we protect our peace. And we learn to value that peace so much more as we get wiser. Right? and we learn how to be able to protect that a lot more as well. And the relationships that you have are either going to be liabilities or great investments in your life, right? And nobody has the power to determine whether they're going to be a liability or an investment more than yourself. Right. But you need to be equipped with the right tools and the right experience to be able to create better relationships and more peace in your life. So I think this is one of the best, I guess, toolkits and mindsets that you could go ahead and set off for yourself in life, right? Is understanding how to better relationships overall in your life.
But I love what you touched base too on just now was in protecting it.
Yes.
There's a difference between that dump truck, but boundaries and protecting yourself too.
Yes.
And I think we also, as an individual, need to be curious thinkers and receive what that person, if a friend sits me down and they're having a conversation with me, then that means it's important to them what I've done or haven't done, where they'd like to see me to go, give me advice. And so zero in on that and really absorb it and think about it, remember it, go home and mull it over, they're planting ideas in your head, so to receive it and figure that part out. If they're taking their time to do that, then that's really important in the relationship for sure. Yeah. So any last words of wisdom? Or should I just start?
I think if you got anything out of this episode, it's really the meat and potatoes out of this would be really understanding how important it is to protect your peace, and how you can protect your peace through your relationships that you build with one another, and learning how to up your game in communication.
Yeah.
I think those big key points are great takeaways from today's topic and conversation.
And get out there and travel.
Yes.
Eat good food.
Yes, eat good food. And every once in a while, be a dump truck.
Right, exactly.
That's a good friend.
Right. Well, I so appreciate your time, as I always have.
Always a pleasure, Jack.
There's more to come, I can tell.
Definitely.
From this as well. And thanks for tuning in, folks. If you have any questions, do I dare say it? You can DM Tony.
Here we go. At Dump Truck.
But go to Gracious Spaces, comment. We're going to be posting this. And if you have any questions, myself or Tony will get right back to you and with our 2 cents, for whatever that's worth. But I appreciate that this morning. I'll see you in the morning, Tony.
See you in the morning, Jack.
Take care, folks.
Peace, y'all.